Hey there, Hetty here. So yes, I've been AWOL. Sorry about that, but the time away was inevitable and will no doubt lead to interesting conversations at some later date. For now, please enjoy this photo of the island I now call home. I'm actually posting a video because I've lately watched some others that left me thinking about my own channel. In each case, it was the gripes about the most common and popular content on the witchcraft-related vlogosphere that I found myself nodding sadly along to, and which I think are absolutely valid critiques. In particular, I want to give a shout out to Nomquaz, I'm sorry about the pronunciation, her new video titled Standing Naked Before Myself. For all that there is and always has been excellent content on YouTube, I admittedly find a lot of what gets posted under the guise of spiritual or witchy videos vapid, shallow, and more often transparently money-grubbing. I'm sure this sounds harsh, especially in light of the general expectation that we all be supportive of one another and, above all, positive and non-judgmental. It is judgmental, and only partly defensible, really. It's also an accurate description of my feelings toward a lot of content. My feelings about this aren't really worth discussing, though, nor do I want to get bogged down in what would be an hours-long conversation without any hope of reaching a conclusion. Suffice it to say that, yeah, I'm pretty bored by a lot of what I find on witchy YouTube channels, too, and I also lament the loss of every host whose work I enjoyed before they disappeared or decided to fine-tune their brand into a blogucational caricature of its former self. What I want to talk about instead is related, though, in that it's one of the challenges I run into when making videos, and one which I suspect plays its own part in the proliferation of, let's call it, shallow content. And the challenge is this: balancing my desire to guard intimate aspects of my life and craft versus my ability to share information I think is exciting and worth discussing. I've lost count of the number of times I've prepared a video, by which I mean scripted a video, because I usually find it easier and less time-consuming to write out what I want to say than it is to record countless takes and then edit because I forgot to mention this or failed to qualify that or wasn't clear enough about this part, whatever. I've lost count of how often I've written something that I think will be exciting and worthwhile for others to consider and play with, and then decided not to post it because it relied upon the inclusion of details I considered too intimate to share on an open platform. Here, perhaps, is one of the great pitfalls of trying to discuss an experiential practice. So much of what I learn is only decipherable if one understands the context in which that lesson was encountered. If I'm not willing to discuss the context, I can't adequately explain the impact or insight. And if I'm unwilling to share the thing that actually happened, you can't evaluate for yourself how relevant such an experience might be for you. You can't offer opinions on it or your own insights, your own analyses. I've tried to share my ideas and perspectives without crossing that private line in the sand. I do try. The pieces I can discuss abstractly, I generally do. But sometimes the conversation just can't survive the excision of personal detail. For example, I've wanted to talk about somatic manifestations of craft for the longest time. I've written thousands upon thousands of words about it. It's astounding as an experience, and my own history of somatic manifestation of spiritual and craft events have utterly altered my understanding of just how extreme a reaction one's practice can have on the physical, on their body. But these pieces never survive the editing process. It seems I just can't discuss the topic the way I want without providing concrete examples of my own, because those examples serve not just as illustrations, but as important clues as to what I think it all means. I might as well be taking a hammer to 2/3 of the stepping stones I've relied upon to reach my conclusion. Without them, the journey is excruciating to retrace and impossible to follow. Concrete examples, even anecdotal ones, are also important for their own sake, because they allow us to consider our own assumptions and presupposed limitations. These personal stories about the potential of witchcraft in another real, not so different from you person's hands are powerful motivators and provide hope that, yes, there is more to explore and experience. That thing is what a lot of us seek when we read book after book after book on witchcraft. They offer the promise that we can still be surprised and discover boundless terrain we've never conceived of. You'd be hard-pressed to realize that watching most of what gets put out by experienced witches on YouTube, though. And you'd be forgiven for concluding that all that's left to explore after 5 or 10 years of practice is this month's Moonbox. I'd love to be able to provide that sort of explicit, no-holds-barred conversation on my channel. But apparently, thus far, my desire to do so has lost out to my desire to maintain a modicum of privacy. So the only people who hear about those events and my takes on them are those I know personally. I'm for 100% sure not alone. I expect the battle between the desire for privacy and the desire to share one's most astounding experiences is one that's been waged by the majority of people who post videos on witchcraft. I'm sure a lot of them order moon boxes and get accused of being vapid consumerist flakes as a result. The more time progresses, the more what I learn falls into the category of awesome, but how the fuck do I talk about that without talking about it? And I wonder whether, to some extent, the apparent dearth of intermediate and advanced information on the craft isn't so much that advanced learning is simply broad learning, but that the deep learning is so reliant on personal details and experience that sharing it often means airing our most intimate thoughts and secrets. For those unwilling to do so on public platforms, the result is every appearance of shallowness, of a road leading nowhere, and the slow death of novelty in videos as practitioners wander farther and farther off the trail of what they feel comfortable sharing with thousands of strangers. So we get more unboxing videos, more rehash of introductory content, more witchy question tags, and whatever else producers can think to provide a glimmer of support and excitement without necessitating that they stand entirely naked before us. I don't blame them, but then I'm in the same boat. I don't know what the answer to this conundrum is, or whether there is one aside from making a choice between complete surrender before an unvetted audience or consistent withholding. I'll happily make videos about technique and abstract theory, answer witchy tags whose questions are designed not to probe too deep, and detail what glue I use to make my book of shadows. But in the end, like you, I want something more. I want to talk about the intimate, even though I won't. And I want to hear about the intimate, even though I understand entirely why others won't discuss it either. I want to give everybody shit about how we're not talking about the really deep stuff, man, but I'm no less guilty of that myself, and I am not quite enough of an asshole to pretend I'm anything else. And here is where the group practitioner, provided they can actually find a group that operates on a similar wavelength, has one up on the solitary. If you know other serious witches, you have somebody, at least, to discuss these sorts of things with. Somebody to learn from, to bounce ideas off of, and to teach in turn. For those who don't have that, for those looking for intimately derived information, for stories and discussion that revolve around personal craft experiences, for 90% of what I think of as intermediate to advanced craft, well, I expect they'll continue to get tired of the same old on YouTube and retreat from the platform as their needs and wants go unmet here. I don't blame them either. I do mourn their loss, though, as generally these are the people I want most to hear from and talk to. But this platform, I think it's the wrong one for the sorts of discussions some of us want to have. At some point, we've just got to take the conversation to the dimly lit parlor that seats only 7. That's it. A lovely weekend to you all.